office,
Yes, sir.
but not right there in the residence.
Okay. When you were at Ms. Grinstead's residence, did you have an occasion to look at her house phone?
I did.
And that particular house phone, what kind of phone was that?
It's an AT&T cordless phone with an answer machine built into the phone, but the handset is separate, meaning it's cordless.
And do either the answering machine portion or the handset have what we then refer to as caller ID?
It did.
Did you actually take that phone into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to taking the phone into evidence, however, did you record the messages that were left on that phone?
I did.
And the messages that were left on that phone, that particular recording, was that maintained in the case file?
Yes, it was.
And as part of your investigation, did you or other agents working together, were you able to identify the voices of the persons who were or who actually heard on that caller ID, or excuse me, on that voice answering machine?
Some of them.
Okay. Showing the opposing counsel will mark states exhibit 134.
Sure.
I'm going to show you what your State's Exhibit 134 and ask you to take a look at this one. And can you tell the jury if you recognize that piece of equipment?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize that?
That is the phone from Tara Grinstead's bedroom.
And that is the original phone from Tara Grinstead's residence.
It is.
Have you had, because at this time the state was tendering evidence, State's Exhibit 134.
Any objection? No objection. Submitted without objection.
Have you had a chance in the recent past to see if this phone actually still works?
Yes, ma'am.
And does it still work as far as turn on?
The answer machine portion does work. Yes, it does as far as turn on.
And the messages on that answering machine, are they consistent with what you heard when you were recording them back in 2005?
Yes, they are.
So to be clear though, let me ask this. When you were recording them, did you have to start over recording?
Yes, originally it showed 28 messages on the answer machine. When we started recording, a call came in, interrupted the recording. We had to start it over, and it showed 29 messages. And then by the time we actually finished and had everything retrieved, there was 30 messages. So people were still calling.
And did you have any personal knowledge as to whether or not anyone had played those messages before you arrived at the crime scene?
No.
So as sitting here today, do you have any personal knowledge of that?
No, do not.
Judge, if you don't mind, I'd like to have Agent Bodger step down for me. And I'm going to let you do this so I don't match the wrong button, press the wrong button. But if you can, will you please play the messages that are on that answering machine for us?
You have 30 old messages. Thursday, 6:22 p.m.
Hey Tara, this is Tara. I'm in Florida, just gonna check on you. Just you can give me a call later if you want to. If you don't feel like it, that's okay. I just want to check on you. See you later. Bye bye.
Thursday, 9:41 p.m. Rude when you don't call folks back. Hope you get the message. Bye. Saturday, 7:48 p.m. Hey, baby, I just want to let you know how much I love you. Okay, let's see. Friday, 5:47 p.m.
Hey Tara, this is Tanya Griffin. I'm sorry to bother you again, but I thought we might better touch base before tomorrow. If you give me a call, 435-2043. Thanks very much. Bye.
Sunday, 10 a.m. What? Hey, this call to tell you good morning, baby. Give me a call after church. Sunday, 12:10 p.m. Hey, this call. Talk to you. Spoke to you this morning. Still at church, nursery. 11 minutes, sorry. Give me a call back.
No.
Sunday, 2:27 p.m. Hey, I'm like, take me to come see you, and I'm like, you call. Give me a call, let me know what's up. Sunday, 2:46 p.m. Hey, trying to figure out what I need to do this afternoon. Get this message, give me a call. It's about 2:45. I'm in Hawkinsville. I'm going to shoot over that way. Not going to be there. Sunday, 3:15 p.m. If they're there, pick up. I need to make a decision whether I'm going or not. I can see you today if I could. Alright. My wife ain't heard from me today, but you can piss off at me or something. You make all we can. Later. Sunday, 3:39 p.m. Hey, I'm in Hawkinsville. I reckon you're not going to answer the phone, or I don't know what's going on. I'm kind of worried about you since you're not calling me all day. This week. They took off by now several times. I reckon give me a call. You'll get on the deer stand. Sure would like to see you this afternoon. So I told you yesterday I want to come see you. I just got it. Anyway, hope you're alright. I'm here from you. Sunday, 4:44 p.m. Sunday, 5:25 p.m. Sunday, 6:23 p.m. Sunday, 6:26 p.m. I think it's there. You need to pay me that tonight. Okay. Sunday, 7:34 p.m. Okay, please do this phone. I'm trying to get word about you now. Okay, just let me know you're alright. If you're there. Not like you, not tomorrow all day. Please let me hear from you. Sunday, 9:07 p.m.
Good morning. I think your people and I was impressed. And said that 6 miles of access. And get up in the morning, I've got meetings over in Carrollton, and then I got a flight in Philadelphia for the day, and then I'll be heading back for the Georgia Florida game. And I'll be staying over
Sunday, 9:40 p.m. Please pick up the phone. Are you not answering the phone? I don't know. Or what I've done to you. Pick up. Please call me. Sunday, 10:11 p.m. Sarah, will you please pick up if you're there? Hello? Hello? Sunday, 11:25 p.m. And there's me. I'm outside if he comes up in the door. Me. Sunday, 11:44 p.m. Let's drive all the way down here, 12 o'clock at night. And you still on here, still on up here. It's very considerate for you to do. Monday, 12:04 a.m. Monday, 12:27 a.m.
Get this message, would you please call me back? I'm calling you long and all night.
Monday, 12:28 a.m. Hey, Tara. Worried about you, and I called your mama now. She said she can't get hold of you either. If you let me know you're alright, I appreciate it. Just tell me you're okay. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. Let me know you're okay. Alright. Get this message from me. Love you, Papa. Monday, 12:45 a.m. Monday, 12:58 a.m. It's 1 in the morning. It's my last message. I'm leaving. I wish you'd call me and let me know you're okay. Pick up the phone if you're there. Call me. Bye. Monday, 7:19 a.m. 7:30. Ain't here for you, baby. Please let me know you're alright. Monday, 7:31 a.m. Hey, Tara, I was just gonna check on you this morning, dear. See you. Monday, 7:38 a.m.
Tara, it's about 4:08 Monday morning. Please give me a call when you get home. I'm really worried.
Monday, 10:19 a.m.
Hey, this is Anita. If anybody's there, would you please pick up?
Monday, 9:02 p.m.
Miss Grinstead, this is Kenyatta. When you get this message, please call me back at 325-0526.
End of messages.
Agent Audrey, when someone called Miss Grinstead's number and called this particular phone that we have been listening to, would they have gotten any sort of outgoing message?
Yes.
And is that outgoing message still saved on this device.
It is.
Can I get you to please step down and play that for us?
Change. Announcement.
Hello, if you leave a message, I'll call you back. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Based on the way this phone was set up on October 24th of 2005, could anyone have called this particular phone and not heard that outgoing message?
No, not if they called it and let it ring long enough for somebody to pick up or the answer machine to.
Okay. And then I'm going to see if I can do this. You see, nope, I had it the right way the first time. Can you see, thank you. The phone on the screen in front of you?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, for our jurors who may not have ever had a home phone, can you tell us what we're looking at with this phone?
It's the AT&T handset that's cordless that goes with the answering machine telephone there.
Okay. And this particular screen in the top of the phone, what is that screen?
That's an LCD screen,
Okay. What is an LCD screen?
liquid crystal display.
What would this display, this particular screen display?
It would display the numbers that you dial when you're calling. It would display anything saved on that telephone that you're scrolling through. Your caller IDs, directories, anything like that is what that is for.
Okay, so if I were to dial numbers here, should they be showing on that screen?
They should.
Are they showing on that screen?
No, they're not.
Why are they not showing on that screen?
The LCD display right now is not working.
Okay. Prior to the last few weeks, had you had a chance to look at this phone since 2005?
Yes.
When did you last look at that phone?
Prior to
the last few weeks, yes.
2019.
Okay. And when you looked at that phone in 2019, did you plug it up like we've done today?
I did.
At that point, was the LCD screen working?
It was. I noticed a couple of lines. It's made up of lines. A couple of them were out, but it worked pretty good.
Okay. Have you researched how you believe you can fix this LCD screen?
Two things normally go bad with the LCD screens. The screen itself goes bad, or there's a conductive ribbon that attaches the LCD screen to the circuit board. And it is attached with a adhesive. It's a conductive adhesive. And with age, sometimes they don't always come loose, but they lose their connectivity. So you would have to heat them and get them to hopefully make contact again.
Okay. And is that something that you think you probably know how to do?
I can.
Okay. However, have you attempted that at this point? Have you done that on this particular phone?
I have not.
Going back to 2005, when you, actually I'm going to leave that up there, when you looked at this phone, in addition to listening to the messages and recording them, did you also look at the caller ID?
I did.
And did you document the caller ID?
I did.
When I say the caller ID, did you document every single caller ID that was showing on that screen?
Yes, I did.
And did you document, would it show times?
It would.
Would it show dates?
It would.
Did it show the number that was calling?
Yes.
And occasionally would it show either a name or, let's say, cell phone or something of that nature?
Yes.
And caller ID, what we refer to as caller ID on those types of phones, are they very similar to what we're just used to now in cell phones?
Yes, the technology's older. Caller ID was different back then. A lot of it depended on if you subscribed to it or not, and if the incoming call and you both, where the call was placed would have to have caller ID capabilities, and then you would have caller ID on your phones. With cell phones and things nowadays, it's just there. As it comes in, it gives you a number. It's automatic.
And back in the day, we had to pay for caller ID.
We did.
Right? Okay. Showing opposing counsel on Martin States Exhibit 133. May I approach the witness?
Sure.
I'm going to show you what's in Martin States 133 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you recognize that document?
It is the caller ID from the handset.
Okay.
And I have my initials there.
And when you say it's the caller ID from the handset, is that essentially a recording or a documentation of what you saw that day?
It is.
And at the time that you were looking at the caller ID, did you make pen notes about dates, times, and who was calling?
Yes,
And then at some point, was a list of that nature created?
it was.
Now, did you create that list?
We would dictate back then all of our notes when we interviewed someone or anything we did,
Yes,
turn
sir.
it into the office manager. It was called an investigative assistant at that time. And they would type everything for us, and then we would review it and go back over and sign off on it. Yes.
Okay. So while you didn't personally type that list, was it created from your personal knowledge from viewing the machine?
Yes, it was.
In 2019, when you looked back at the caller ID, were you able again to see some of the notes or some of the date
LCDs?
times?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see them pretty
Now,
good there.
That particular document that you're looking at, do you know if any of the dates, times, or other information on there is incorrect based on what you saw in 19?
Yes.
And how many of those are incorrect?
4.
And what is it that's incorrect about them?
Starting on the 24th, which would have been the Monday, the first call in is showing at 12:38 a.m. and the whole list is in sequential order, starting with the oldest all the way up to the most recent. And you have 12:38, 12:38, 12:37, 12:35, which is not in order, and then it jumps to 7:30 and gets back in order. And those 4 were all at 12:33 a.m.
Okay. However, is that how the list was created and documented in the case file?
It is.
Other than those 4 times that should have all been 12:33, is that document accurate to what you viewed on the caller ID back in 2005?
Yes.
And sitting here today, do you have any actual independent recollection of what dates, times, and calls came in on that caller ID?
Very few.
Okay. When you say very few, is there one or more that jumps out at you?
There's one.
Okay. And that particular one, why did that stick in your recollection?
It is the first call on Sunday morning, the 23rd, and it came from a payphone.
Okay. And is that something that even back in 2005 on October 24th jumped out at you?
A little bit.
Okay. Other than that particular phone call, again, do you have any specific recollection where you can tell this jury that on 10/23 at this time this person called? Is that a no?
That's a no.
However, the document in front of you, is that a recorded recollection that was made back then to assist you in documenting that information?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, at this time, we would tender into evidence State's Exhibit 133.
All right, any objection to board IR as to that document?
Yes, Judge. We would object. This is a list that he created. It's similar to the police report, a summary that he typed and he created, or actually somebody else did. He dictated it and then created it. And so it's improper for it, just like a police report or something else that was dictated, a transcript. It's improper. Also, Judge.
Why is that improper?
Police reports are not admissible into evidence, Judge, because we have a live witness who testifies. Just like transcripts of their testimony are not admissible into evidence. He can testify about his personal knowledge, but can he type up a testimonial summary and that actually be introduced into evidence? No. And furthermore, this is what business records are for, certified phone business records. What he typed is not admissible. Otherwise, we would have every single witness typing up their statement and then having that admitted into evidence. And I mean, if that's how the rules would work, then great, but every witness would be able to do that at that point. Every witness would be able to type up what they want to type up and present that in front of in front of the jury as a list.
Any further?
No, but if over my objection, then I would want a voir dire.
I'm going to admit it over your objection.
Okay, then I would ask for voir dire.
Once it's submitted, there's no point for the voir dire as to its authenticity, so.
As to the authenticity of it.
Right.
Right,
But
you would object to the authenticity, and I'd ask for voir dire upon that.
Okay.
And I can do it during
No,
my
that's fine.
examination.
Go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. So the summary that the state presented to you, that is something you hand wrote at the scene and then later dictated to someone else and they typed it?
It would have been written or recorded on a recorder at the scene as I looked at the handset and then turned in for type. Yes, I didn't type it out myself.
Okay. And why would you rely on that and not the actual phone records?
This
You're not
was,
gonna object, that does go down the scope of authenticity, that's
What's that got to do with
cross-examination.
authenticity?
Is
I mean,
that
I get that's to the credibility, but not
the
the
credibility
authenticity,
of the document?
which is not related to authenticity.
Okay.
So I sustain that objection.
Thank you, Judge.
So who dictated that, or who typed that?
my actual report.
No,
In-
that actual document, who typed it?
This document, I'm not sure. In my report, it would have been Davita Hatchett.
Okay, but you're not sure who typed that document?
Not this one. I checked it against my document.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. That's submitted over your objections, timely made and overruled for the record, preserved for the record. All right. That's 136, did you say?
133, Judge.
133, thank you.
And may I publish that to the jury?
Yes.
Okay. Are you able to see that exhibit in front of you, sir? Okay. On the
Yes.
screen? Sorry, I'm trying. When I stop moving it, it'll be clearer, I think. Okay, so again, can you tell the jury, now that they're able to see Exhibit 133, what it is that we're looking at here?
It's the list of the caller ID information from the handset, from the telephone.
Okay. And as it relates to this first page, 1 through 33, so I'm going to get them all on there. Having had a chance to look at this phone back in 2019, were there any discrepancies between the phone and what's actually on this page?
No.
Okay.
No.
Now, before we move on, I'm going to look at specifically line or number 30. Can you tell the jury what they're looking at on line 30?
That is the first call to the telephone on the 23rd, which would have been the Sunday morning at 9:26 a.m., and it is coming from the North Coast Pay.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier something about a pay phone. My question is, how did you know that was a pay phone?
Basically, North Coast Pay,
Yes, sir.
and then at some point, records would have been obtained.
Okay. Now, to be clear, were you the person in charge of getting the actual phone records?
No, not these. Nope.
However, do you have knowledge that at some point the records for North Coast Pay were obtained?
Yes, they did.
And I don't want to talk about the records themselves right now, but looking at that particular North Coast Pay, is that something that, again, you documented and conveyed that to other investigators in this case?
Yes.
And is that something that during the course of this investigation became a point of discussion amongst the agents working on the case?
It was.
Agent, do you know what I mean when I say guilty knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can you tell the jury, based on your years as an agent and your position as head of training, what we mean when we say guilty knowledge?
Yes, it's basically someone knows something about the case that the public doesn't know. Only law enforcement are.
And in cases, especially one of this nature, are there things that you try to hold back that you can then use as guilty knowledge?
Yes.
Is that something that you train or you have your people train agents to do in cases of this nature?
Yes, it is.
Now, I want to look at page 2 of that document. And and I know I've asked you this earlier, but now that they're able to see it, I want to be clear. On page 2 of this document, having reviewed the caller ID LCD screen in 2019, are there any times on here that are incorrect? Or anything that's on there that's incorrect? I apologize.
Yes, number 35, 36, 37, and 38, which are the first 4 calls on Monday morning, the 24th. They start out after midnight at 12:38, and then it goes 2 of them at 12:38, and then 12:37, 12:35. All of those should be 12:33.
12:33. Okay. So I'm going to ask you on this particular exhibit, take my pen, please, and will you make the appropriate changes so that that is accurate to what you saw? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And again, looking at page 2 of 133, so the jurors can see what you've done if they can read it. Other than those changes you just made, when you had a chance to look at this phone again in 2019, did it display exactly the information that's on this particular document now?
Yes.
Okay. And to be clear, the phone call that we've discussed, that you referenced as North Coast Pay, line 30.
Yes, ma'am.
When you looked at this phone in 2019, was that North Coast Pay still showing?
It was.
In addition to completing or documenting the actual calls, did you also have a chance to go through her, what we then would have called a home directory?
Yes.
Okay, we just call them contacts now, but back then it was referred to as a directory.
Yes, ma'am.
Show you page, sorry, page Council Mark State Exhibit 137. Now, correct, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. Similar to what you did with the other exhibit, did you document the information that came off of her home phone showing her contacts, showing her home phone directory?
I did.
And would this have been something similar to a speed dial, or was it in alphabetical order? What was do you recall, I guess is a better question.
It can be used as a speed dial, yes. So you don't have to dial the whole number. You can just dial, if she's trying to call her mother, number 2, and hit the phone button, and it would dial that number.
And have you had a chance to compare? Well, I guess first of all, how do you know that States 137 is consistent with what you saw from that phone?
I've compared that with my case file.
And again, is that something that you would have documented that particular day?
It is.
And is this a true and accurate recording? Well, let me ask you this first. Sitting here today, can you tell this jury that you have personal knowledge that you remember all of her contacts that were in her home phone?
I don't remember all of them.
Is this a recorded recollection of what was in her home phone?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I will tender to evidence States Exhibit 137.
All right, the objection of board hours to 137.
Never see, is that, I haven't seen it. Oh, that, no, I'm sorry, I thought it was the other one. Yes, no objection to that.
That's admitted without objection.
May I publish that to the jury?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so again, this particular document, 137, where did that information come from?
The handset on the telephone number, the directory.
Okay. May I have just a moment, Judge?
Some more, anything? You okay?
I'm good, thank you, sir.
Okay. At some point, did you or someone else related to this investigation create a table that is essentially a transcript of the recorded phone calls in addition to information about who made the call and what time it came in?
Yes.
Showing code to council Mark States Exhibit 136. Show you what's been marked States Exhibit 136. Ask you to take a look at that for me, please. It's a couple pages, a few pages.
Is this a compilation of the voicemail messages we just heard?
It is, Judge, with some other things. I'm going to ask them some more questions about it, but yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So that was going to be my question. Is that something that was created in this case file to document in writing the audio messages as best as you could?
Yes, it was.
And to be clear again, is that something that you personally typed up?
I did not.
However, was that contained within the case file in this case?
It was.
And are you familiar with it?
Yes.
When we look at this, States Exhibit 136, the columns that we see here, the information about day, date, time, and message, where would that information have come from?
The answer machine
Okay.
that we listened to.
The information about well, let me skip over that. The information about the number, where would that have come from?
That would have come from known telephone numbers that we had for these people calling in phone records.
And then the information about from, toll time, and tower, where would that information have come from?
This particular toll time here would come from the answer machine. So as it played, it said at whatever time.
Okay.
And then
So then why do we have a time and a toll time is my question.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
you're correct. Yes, this is what it says from the answer machine. That toll time would come from phone records.
Okay. So to be clear, up until, well, let me ask you, the from column, be clear on that. Do you know if that would have come from the recordings themselves or from knowledge of law enforcement?
Probably some of both.
Okay. But, so take that off. These first four columns, day, date, time, messages, is that information that all comes from the recordings we've already heard?
It is.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I would move to tender States Exhibit 136, but only publish the portions that we've just discussed that came from the way it's made. It's not an Excel spreadsheet I can edit myself.
Right. All right, what columns, again, do you want to publish?
Just going through the content of the messages would be from date, time.
So the first four columns?
Yes, sir. And from would be from and over would not be displayed at this time.
Okay. Y'all have a copy of this?
We don't, but we received one. I didn't get one today. We
All right.
received one in this government.
Any objection to?
No,
No objection.
not to what she's talking about.
The first four columns.
Thank you.
All right, you can exhibit the first four columns to the exhibit only. The other four are not admitted. And that's without objection.
Thank you, Judge.
What is admitted?
Okay. I don't want to touch that. Are you able to see well enough to read it on the screen?
I think so.
Okay. So again, well, let me scoot it up a little bit. Looking at what is displayed on the screen, can you tell the jurors what we're looking at here?
The transcript from the phone records, time it came in from the answer machine, and the date.
Okay.
Yeah, and the day.
I'm going to see if I'm intelligent enough to figure out how to zoom in on this thing. The answer's probably no.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, that helped? Okay, so for instance, I want to skip down to October 23rd. On the date that you were recording this information, what date would that have been?
The 24th.
Okay. And again, we have the day of the week. Is that what this means?
Yes,
And then the date, where would that information have come from?
the recorder itself.
And then the answering machine messages.
Yes, they came from the recorder itself.
Okay. And again, moving to page 2 of that document. Are we looking essentially at the same thing?
Yes.
Now, when it says hang up, what does that mean?
That means someone called the phone long enough for the answering machine to pick up and record that there was a message, but nobody said anything and they hung up, so there's nothing there.
So you just made a statement about that the phone rang long enough for the answering machine to pick up. Again, for those who have never had an answering machine, can you tell us what you mean by that?
Yes. Sometimes when you call a phone, and it depends on how the phone is set up, how many times it's going to ring before the answering machine picks up. This type phone, if as soon as the answering machine picked up, you hung up, it may or may not record that a call actually came through to that machine. But just a few seconds may make the difference in it recorded that this is a message, but nobody left one and they hung up. So it's got to do with how long they hold the phone or how long it is until they hang up, whether it actually records it or not.
Okay. I want to go back to page 1 and ask you some questions about that. Looking at the information from the answering machine, what is the time of the first call that is made on October 23rd, that Sunday?
I can't see it. You have to scoot
Oh,
it up
sorry.
just a little bit. October 23rd, that's Sunday.
Yes, sir.
From the answer machine, it's 10:10 a.m. is the first message that was left that the answer machine actually recorded or
Okay.
picked up.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 133 and already entered. Looking at this North Coast Pay call that we've talked about earlier,
Yes.
I'm going to try to put it all there together. Does that phone call show on the answering machine?
It does not.
Does it even show as a hang-up on the answering machine?
It does not.
Based on your knowledge of this machine and just answering machines in general, what does that tell you about the call from North Coast Pay?
When it was answered, it was an immediate hang up.
Okay. And just so, because I hadn't shown it yet, looking at page 3 of the answering machine messages. Again, would these be transcripts of the messages that we heard before?
Yes.
Okay. And this last call, this 9:02 p.m. on Monday, well, I guess let me ask you, do you know which of these calls, if any, is the call that came in while you were actually recording the original messages?
It's hard to say.
Okay.
But if possibly that 902, but
Okay.
I don't, it's hard to tell.
Okay, that's fine. And that particular recording, is that something that was turned over itself?
Yes.
Now, when you made that recording, was it made with a CD or with a device, recording device that has memory in it?
It was.
What kind of recording device did you use to actually record the calls off of that answering machine?
It's a mini CD
Right.
that is encased. It's encased in a plastic holder, kind of like an older floppy disk type thing, but the CD is in the middle of it. So it's actually a CD, but it's just the format at that time period that was being used.
And in 2005, was that pretty high tech at the time?
It was in 2005.
Okay. In 2022, do we have many devices that would still play that original?
No.
Okay. I want to play you just a portion of an exhibit that's already been tendered, just for comparison. Is that going to be 200? That was the disc?
Yeah.
before she, perfect. I'm not touching anything down there.
You have one year
Yeah,
that
start that. It's been
28
first of it.
messages.
Okay, there we go. Restart states 200.
This is 200.
200.
That you're playing now. Thank
Yes,
you.
Your Honor.
You have one new message and 28 old messages. Monday, 10:19 a.m.
Hey, this is Anita. If anybody's there, would you please pick up?
End of messages. You have 29 old messages. Thursday, 6:22 p.m.
Hey, Tara. This is Tara. I'm just worried about this. Just gonna check on you. Just you can be called later if you want to. If you don't feel like it, that's okay. Just want to check on you. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thursday, 9:41 p.m.
Really, when you got to talk about the back. Hope you get the message. Bye.
Saturday, 7:48.
I'm going to stop it right there at 1 minute 21 seconds. Having had a chance to listen to a portion of States 200, do you recognize that?
Yes.
And how do you recognize that?
That is the recording of the answering machine from the October 24th, 2005.
Are there any messages on the recording you made that were not heard in open court today?
No.
I'm going to change gears here for a moment. In this particular case, in addition to gathering the actual phone and the records that we've discussed, did you also take anything? Sorry, I apologize. I'm going to thank you. Did you take anything into evidence from Ms. Grinstead's room?
Yes.
And what did you take into evidence from her room?
A photograph from a picture frame.
Why did you take the photograph?
At that time, she's a missing person, so we're trying to get the word out for people to be on the lookout for Ms. Grinstead. So we needed a good photograph.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 135 and ask you if you recognize that.
I do.
How do you recognize that?
It's the photo I took on October the 24th from her bedroom.
And to be clear, when you say you took the photo, you didn't actually take it with a camera. You physically took the photo?
I physically
Removed the photo.
removed the photo and took it with me, yes.
And is that the original photo that you removed from Tara Grinstead's bedroom?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender in evidence State's Exhibit 135.
Objection. That's admitted without objection. States 135. Thank you.
Okay. Displaying State's Exhibit 135 on the screen. Again, is this the original picture that you took from her bedroom?
Yes, it is.
And do you recall where you took that picture from her bedroom?
It was in a picture frame. As you come in the bedroom, you enter the bedroom from the, make sure I get my direction right, the southeast corner, and it was a corner-fed room, meaning the door, you entered from the corner of the room instead of the middle of the room. Directly down that wall, there's a chest of drawers. Beside it, another shelf and some other items on the wall there, and it was on the wall but on the shelf. Leaned up against the wall, pushed all the way against the wall on the shelf.
Just a moment, please. And the phone as well that we've been talking about, where was that phone located when you took it on October 24th?
It was located on the nightstand, right by the bed.
So I'm going to show you, first of all, it's been already entered at State's Exhibit 114. And I can ask you to step down here for me, please.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot easier down here, I promise. Can I get you to point to the jury or point out to the jury where that particular frame and photograph were located on October 24th of 2005?
It's been on the shelf right here.
You got to do it under here.
I'm sorry. Where are we going now? Where's my finger?
Hey, look, you can just look at it right on there.
It's been right up here on the shelf.
Okay. And have you had a chance to look at pictures in this case that were taken by both Bill Bars and Jeff Rossler? Let's see, thank you. In the pictures that Bill Bars took, are you able to see that picture, that being this particular picture of Tara, still in the frame?
Yes.
And in the pictures then that Agent Rossler took, are you able to see that's been removed?
Yes.
Additionally, the phone that we've been discussing, I'm going to display States 56. Now, do you recognize whether the phone is in this particular photograph?
It is?
And again, you indicate it's on the nightstand, is that right?
It is. That's it right above your finger.
Now, when you saw the phone, was the handset off as it is here?
No, the handset was on the phone when we
Okay.
got in there.
And to your knowledge, again, have you actually seen these pictures that Bill Bars took before?
I have.
And to your knowledge, again, when he took his pictures, is this going to be one that it was off because Bill, I'm going to ask this better. In the pictures where we have the phone not in the handset, is that going to be pictures that were taken before GBI arrived on scene?
They were.
So the pictures where we see the phone in the cradle, those are going to be GBI pictures?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Did you collect any other physical evidence in this case?
Yes.
Okay. What else did you collect in this case?
Computers from her, I call it the computer room, but it's a second bedroom that she used as a computer room.
Okay. And what was done with those computers?
They were transported to Houston County Sheriff's Department for analysis.
Okay. I'm going to show you which one is the laptop. Show you first the home computer that Mr. Rigby is so kindly carrying for me because it's heavy. States Exhibit 142. And then the laptop, States Exhibit 143. While he's doing all that, you can look at 143 for me, please.
Okay.
Wherever it'll fit.
Go ahead. Okay.
Having looked at States Exhibit 143, do you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is the laptop that I retrieved from the second bedroom or computer room.
And is that the same laptop that was then turned over to Houston County to be to have a download done on it?
It was. Or it is.
It is. And in States Exhibit 142, do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
That is the home computer or tower computer from that computer room.
And who seized that particular computer?
I did.
And what was done with that computer after you seized it?
Took it to turn it over to Houston County for analysis.
And I'm sure that we can see what you're doing, but just so the jurors understand, these documents that you're looking at, what are those?
Those are our property receipts, and that's what we put with every piece of evidence. We write what it is we're taking and sign our initials at the bottom, and it has a chain of custody for what time you take it and then what time you turn it over to someone else or put it in storage.
Okay, and was that done to each, both States 142 and 143?
It was.
Now, this time I would tender to evidence States 142 and 143.
Any objection? No objection, those are admitted.
over there. Thank you. Now, the actual analysis of these, thank you, Mr. Rachel, of these particular computers, did you do that?
I did not.
However, did you directly turn those over to Houston County?
I did.
What number is this again? Show code council on Martin States Exhibit 141. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 141 and ask you to take a look at that for me.
Okay,
Do you recognize what that is?
I do.
And how do you recognize that?
This is items I took from the kitchen. There's a small desk in the kitchen area of Ms. Grinstead's residence, and it's papers, a little red address book, got some photocopies and things like that in it, business cards.
Okay. And the document that you have in front of you, does that appear that it's been opened since you originally took the items of evidence, if you can tell?
Yeah, this here? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Take a look at that inside and make sure that's what's inside and what it says on the outside.
A lot of credit card statements. I'm looking for the red address book. I don't see the red address book.
Okay. So States 141 contains some of the items you collected, but not the red address book?
Yes, ma'am.
When you collected that address book, what would you have done with it?
Placed it in that bag and taken it to the evidence room.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And then I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 144 that's been previously shown to the defense counsel.
Okay.
Do you recognize State's 144?
Yes, ma'am.
And how do you recognize State's 144?
It's got my initials on the back of it where I sealed it.
Okay.
And it's a buckle swap kit.
After you sealed this particular document, does it appear it's ever been opened again?
Yes.
And can you tell, looking at that, your years of experience, where it's been opened?
Here at the top with this evidence,
Don't display it to them quite yet, please. But
this evidence tape here
yes, sir.
is not our evidence tape. It would be at the lab.
Okay.
This is ours.
And you've just identified them as buckle swabs. With those, from whom did you collect those buckle swabs?
This one from Heath Dykes.
And other than it being opened at the lab, is that in the same condition as when you saw it after you collected it?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury how you go about collecting buckle swabs?
Yes, there's a couple of swabs, and you actually have a kit, like that is a kit. And you scrub the buccal swabs on the cheek, inside cheek of the person you're taking the swab from, place them inside the buccal swab kit, and then you seal it and sign it.
Thank you. And when you collected this buccal swab from Heath Dykes, did you have a search warrant?
No.
How were you able to collect his DNA without a search warrant?
He willingly gave it to us.
Other than the things that we've looked at today and talked about today, did you have any other role in processing or collecting evidence from Tara Grinstead's home?
No.
Did you have any other role as it relates to the investigation, which was then of a missing person, Tara Grinstead?
I did some interviews,
Okay.
yes, but not at the residence.
One more piece of evidence. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 168 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
Now, it's a missing poster of Tara Grinstead.
Okay. And that particular poster, the picture that was used, do you recognize that picture?
Yes.
How do you recognize that picture?
It's the picture from the picture frame I took from the bedroom.
Your Honor, at this time I would tender into evidence State's Exhibit 168.
Any objection?
No objection.
168 is admitted without objection. Thank you.
Do you recall after these items have been collected and after Agent Rossler processed the crime scene, if you ever entered the residence again with anyone else?
On another date?
No, that particular day, did you allow any of Tara's friends or families
Yes.
to come into the residence with you?
Yes, when we were about to leave, her sister Anita
Yes, sir.
came into the living room of the residence with myself and Agent Rossler and Dominic Turner. And Agent Turner turned over some items found out, or some money
Okay.
that was in the car during its search.
And was Miss Gaddis at that point allowed to look at other portions of the house to see if anything was out of place?
Yes.
And other than allowing Miss Gaddis into the house after it had been processed, did anyone else go in that house in your presence?
No.
That's all the questions I have at this time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a lunch break. We'll be in recess for the lunch hour until 1:15. Let's everybody remain in place, ladies and gentlemen, while the jury exit the courtroom. Your lunch is waiting for you downstairs. Thank y'all. Y'all can head on down if you want, unless you need something in there.
Go out that way.
You can step down.
Thank you.
Agent Bodger, thank you. How do you spell your last name, by the way?
B-O-D-R-E-Y.
Just like it sounds. Okay.
Yes.
You got that, Heather?
Yes, thank you.
All right, y'all want to take up the items we were discussing this morning before we started to do over the lunch hour? Y'all want to wait till after you eat? You want to do it later this afternoon? Okay. I'll hear from you then, Mr. Merchant and Ms. Grant.
Yeah, Your Honor, we just wanted to talk to the station, Your Honor, about the scheduling issues. We're moving pretty quickly, quicker than I think anybody anticipated. So we just want to make sure that we have our folks lined up. So we'd like to see if the state's original announcement of 1.5 weeks for their case in chief is still accurate, or whether we need to adjust that.
What's the best reasonable estimate, Ms. Hart, you can give us for me to tell the defense they're protected until none of their witnesses would be expected to be here before X day?
So, Your Honor, based on the way that we're currently going, assuming things don't slow down with the crime lab fix, I would say that as far as timing, the state could probably finish on Friday. However, I have learned that we had one of our experts who's coming from Texas. Because we are growing much faster than expected, she cannot be available until Monday morning. And so if we're done on Friday, I'm going to ask the court's indulgence to allow us to start Monday. But that would be, either that would be our last witness or the next to the last witness.
So, y'all are protected until mid-morning Monday. How about that? All right. Thank y'all so much, Ms. Hart. You got
I did.
A couple things? If you can think of them now, fine. If you can't.
You just put me on the spot as to what they were. I remember, Judge. I anticipate that the confession that the defendant gave will be played either tomorrow or the next day. I anticipate tomorrow. In going through the interview...
Is that video and audio or just audio?
It's both and it's separate. It starts as an audio, changes into a video. Then there's another portion that's audio only as they're doing the booking information and also the ride to Ben Hill County. And then there's video once they get out there as well.
Right.
So it's a little bit of both.
How long?
Total, hour and a half to 2 hours.
You intend to play all of it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
They're separate. They're considered separate portions of the interview, so they're separate exhibits, but total, I would say about an hour and a half to 2
Any
hours.
issues about redaction or anything?
That's what I wanted to bring up. So previously, obviously, I had intended to redact anything that was bad character evidence. They do discuss his prior, I believe they discussed briefly his prior DUI, the fact that he went AWOL from the military, those sorts of things. At this point, based on Your Honor's ruling yesterday, I don't believe that that would be required, given that the good character evidence has come in. The two things I specifically, there is a third one that I specifically remember where he talks about how he will lose his temper and get angry at people and those sorts of things. So the state no longer intends to redact those. But I did have, wanted to just put on the record and see where we were going with, there is several portions in that audio, particularly the audio, in which Agent Shadell makes comments, well, Bo told me this, Bo told me that. It would be the state's position that that would be improper hearsay to come in based on the court's prior ruling. There's certainly a confrontation clause issue for Agent Shadell to state what Bo told him. So my intention has been to mute those portions. Additionally, during at least one of those conversations where he's talking about Bo told me this, he also does make a comment where he says, I believe Bo and I believe you. Again, it's the state's position. While that could be argued as strategy during the interview, it's the state's position that that is a comment on the believability of the witnesses. And so our intention had been to redact that.
As to the defendant and Bo?
Yes, Your Honor, because I don't believe that would be appropriate. That being said, based on defense counsel's opening statement, I don't have an objection to those things being played, but I am just stating in my place that I believe that they do not come in. And so it would be my intent to redact and mute those portions so that we don't have any improper hearsay from Bo through Agent Shadell.
What was it about the opening statement?
She specifically referenced something, Bo told us this, and then she also referenced one of the times in which Agent Shadell tells Ryan, I believed him and I believe you. Again, it would be my understanding of the law is neither of those things would be admissible. And so I would be intending to redact that, but I just wanted to make sure I have answers as to that before we start.
I don't remember what I remember some reference to Agent Shadell's tactics.
Yes.
She called into question. I don't remember exactly which ones they were. It'd be in the record. But y'all want to comment on this now? You want to look over what,
Yeah, Your Honor, if the court would allow us, we'd like to discuss that lunch.
We can do it in the morning.
In the morning, it would be great.
The only problem with the morning is I believe that it's going to be played tomorrow, and it's I have the times, but it'll take me several hours tonight to make sure and replay it and re-listen to it to make sure I have everything done. That's why I was trying to bring it up today. Because it's not one time, it's probably 10 times that I'm looking at muting it. And again, I have each of those
the
noted.
character stuff plus the...
Most of those are the comments about Bo told us this. And again, I've noted the general comments.
What about the Bo told us this stuff?
Yeah, Your Honor, I think we can resolve that at lunch, at the end of lunch.
That's fine.
Okay, and then I believe you, I believe what Bo said, that kind of stuff. Y'all, let's talk about that, but then we'll talk about the character stuff. You can identify where that is on the computer pretty quick, or the CDs.
Like after lunch so you can hear it?
No.
Okay.
No, not that. Y'all got to get something to eat too. Will it be as painstaking to delete any of that if we decide that way to go?
It just means out of precaution, I'm going to re-listen to them anyway, but it means I have to re-listen about 20 times to make sure I have the seconds correct.
Okay.
So that there's no mistakes. So again, I can do that if that's what I need to do, but would prefer, I mean, that's what I do with my opening, and it took several hours and then it didn't work out. It's just wasted time. So I prefer not to do that if it's coming
What
in.
happened to it? Just
When your honor turned off the system because it was reacting to the microphones from the media, that's the system that needed to play.
did I turn it off?
Or you told someone else to turn it off is what I've been.
I got it. Okay.
Anyway, that being said, we're making sure at lunch actually that these audios and videos play these particular
everything's a lot
ones.
better.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Today's not been any issues.
Yeah.
And I've got those specific audios and videos, and we're going to work on that to make sure they play, so we shouldn't have that issue.
So after dinner, let's talk about both statements. Yes. That agent should have communicated to your client. Okay? Thank y'all.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, see y'all about 10 after 1, say.
the L-shaped scale, right there next to the suspected blood, just giving you an approximate size of the stain.
And State's Exhibit 120.
It's another closer range photograph of the suspected blood on the white comforter.
And when we talk about the blood on the white comforter, that is what is contained in State's Exhibit 125. Is that correct?
Yes.
Another series of photographs, that being State's Exhibits 121 through 124. If you'll look at each of those, please.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with what's shown in each of those photographs?
Yes, I am.
And generally, what do each of those photographs show?
They are photographs of the scene as it was when I got there, the exterior, including the carport, the vehicle, the door, and then a stone outside of the front porch area that's cracked.
And did you take those photographs?
Yes, I did.
And do each of those photographs truly and accurately depict the scene as you saw it in October 2005?
Yes, they did.
Note this time it's in your State's Exhibits 121 through 124.
121 through 124. Any objection? They're admitted without objection. Thank you.
Showing you State's Exhibit 121. Ask if you'll look at that, please, sir.
Sure.
And tell me about that.
Sure. It's a medium-range photograph. I'm actually standing in the grassy kind of driveway leading up to the carport, located on the northeast side of the residence. The photograph of the vehicle located there.
State's Exhibit 122.
Closer range photograph of the vehicle with the license plate.
State's Exhibit 123.
It's a photograph of the back corner of that same carport, so the vehicle would be just to the left of me in this photograph. Taking a photograph of that door that door actually leads into the laundry room, as we saw it before, but you could see with the decorations in front of it, did not seem that it was readily used.
And State's Exhibit 124.
Sure, so this is a decorative stone that was located right in front of the front uncovered porched area as you would step up to go into the residence. This is located on the ground right next to it.
Now that we've talked about photographs, I'm going to talk about fingerprints. What do you do for taking fingerprints at a crime scene?
So a majority of the time we'd use fingerprint powder, fingerprint dust, and use an applicator and go over areas and try to develop any latent fingerprints that we're able to get at the scene.
And what areas do you typically process for fingerprints?
So depending on the crime, if you know something was touched, obviously you would give that time and consideration to process that. Into a scene like this where you don't know, I was responding to a missing person at the time, so you don't know really what's important and what's not. And so you pretty much have to process the whole house. So when you have to do an entire house, you concentrate, you do a really good job, but you concentrate on the areas that are normally touched, almost like high traffic, light switches, doors, door frames, doorknobs, handles, so on and so forth.
Now, with regard to fingerprints, are certain surfaces better for getting fingerprints from than other surfaces?
Yes.
And describe that for me. What would be better surfaces and what would not be a good surface?
So non-porous surfaces are technically better because when you see fingerprints, when we lift fingerprints, you're actually leaving behind, when you touch something, you're leaving behind oil and water that is coming through is being secreted through your glands, right? And so if you look at your fingers, what you see are the ridges, the little high parts, and you have the furrows that go down in between. And so you're leaving those anytime you touch something. Now, depending on how much of a secretor you are, the temperature, if you're very sweaty or not, or just ate some good chicken, that's what I like to say. When you touch something, you're going to leave some fingerprints that you can probably pretty much see. But if your hands are pretty dry, colder weather or anything like that, they kind of dry up in the wintertime, then you're not secreting as much. So it's a little more difficult. But obviously, if it's a porous surface, then what you leave behind will stay there. If it's a non-porous surface. If it's a porous surface, like a fabric or anything like that, well then it's going to be really difficult to obtain any type of a print from that.
With regard to Ms. Grinstead's home, did you process certain areas within her residence for fingerprints?
Yes, I did.
All right, and tell us about that, please.
So, like I said, use black fingerprint powder. There are different colors. For the most part, crime scene specialists will use black, depending on the color of the surface. If it's a dark colored surface, then you could use a light or a bichromatic, which is like a gray and a black together, just to give yourself some contrast, to be able to see it, to identify it, photograph it, and then, if needed, and then lift it.
Marked on the Rossler, I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification as States Exhibits 126 through 132, and ask if you'll look at each of those. Judge, for the record, I cut open the bag myself.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And how are you able to recognize those items?
So this is the bag. These are the latent fingerprint cards. This is the bag that I placed them in with my initials and the evidence receipt, or excuse me, the evidence tape that I initialed, like we spoke of earlier. And these are actual the lift cards. So when you use fingerprint powder, you dust it on a surface, and if you're able to locate the actual print, then you use they have different kinds of tape. I've had more success with the clear tape. They have it's called frosted, but I had more success using the clear fingerprint tape. That's what you use, and you actually kind of put it over it, but you have to be very careful because you don't want to smudge the print when you're putting the tape over it. So you have to be pretty careful in doing that, and use some force to lay it across the print, smooth it out. Then you just take the tape off, and then you put it actually onto one of these cards. So you dust it, you find it, you put the tape over it, lift the tape off, and put it on one of these cards. And then you document on the back of the card the time, the date, the case number, who lifted it. So it's got my name and at the time my badge number and the location where it was lifted from.
With regard to each of those items, are those items that you lifted there from the residence of Ms. Grinstead?
Yes.
But at this time, I would send your State's Exhibits 126 through 132.
All right, those are all print cards.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection, 126, 132. Thank you, Mr. All right, those are admitted without objection.
With regard to each of these items, Agent Rossler, I believe you indicate where they are, the location where they are lifted from on the card itself. Is that right?
That's correct. There's a crude rough diagram.
And just for illustration purposes, this is State's Exhibit 126. Are those your initials on this item?
Yes, JR.
And with regard to the back of State's Exhibit 126, does that indicate, whose handwriting is that on the back of that item?
That is my handwriting.
And does it indicate the locations of where you lifted this particular print? Is that right?
Yes, you can see, like I said, it's a pretty crude sketch of the door, and you can see the door handle on the right side, and the X is where I would locate where the print came from, general area.
And with regard to each of these particular items, that is State's Exhibits 126 through 132, I'm about to see if you can look at them up close. But each of those come from the front door itself.
Yes, they came from the interior of the front door, so the inside of it.
Now, did you seek to obtain prints from other locations on the door?
Yes.
And were you successful in getting prints from other locations on the door?
I was not.
Now, with regard to looking at, and just so we're clear, that's the door we're talking about here, which is State's Exhibit 76. Is that the same door?
Yes, it is. That's correct.
Right. And those came from the interior, so that would be from this side of the door. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And did you try to get from the exterior of the door?
I did.
And were you able to lift any prints from the exterior of the door?
I was not.
Now, with regard to the residence, you talked earlier about the front door not showing signs of any forced entry. Did you look at other locations in the house for signs of forced entry?
Sure. There's the photograph of the other door in a carport, and that was locked and sealed. You can tell it wasn't used primarily as the primary entrance to the residence, I would say. Because of the items located directly in front of it and behind it in that laundry room. And then overall photographs were taken on the exterior of the residence, which showed all of the windows were closed and secured as well.
And did you also prepare a diagram of the overall view of the residence?
Yes, I did.
And I'm going to seek to find it up here in all of this. Just 1 second. Yes, I'm just trying. I can't find it. It's number 4 of those. I might have one written off already. I had it pulled out. There it is. I found it. All right, Agent Russler, I'm going to show you what's been previously admitted into evidence as State's Exhibit number 5. And are you familiar with State's Exhibit 5?
Yes, I am.
And how are you familiar with State's Exhibit 5?
That's a sketch I did on the computer of the residence that we talked about. Where you take the overall photographs of the scene, and I'll document a sketch, and then we'll pretty it up some on the computer using technology to give the jurors an opportunity to see almost like a bird's eye view of the residence and the layout and where the rooms were located.
All right, we talked about how many doors or points of entry into the home regarding doors.
Sure. So there were 2 points of entry into the residence. You can see it's almost in the very center of on the bottom side.
Tell you what, Your Honor, may Agent Rossler come down and assist me down here. You can point on here. Then we'll see. If you will, just show us the 2 points of entry regarding doors to the residence.
Sure. So this is the main door, the front door of the residence. It faces to the north. This is on the front uncovered porch. This is that photograph that we saw. The door was kind of halfway open. And this is also the same door that I was able to obtain the latent lifts from on the interior of the door. The second point of entry was up here in the corner of that carport. And that's the one that had like the Halloween decorations in front of it. And on the other side of that is the laundry room, which we also saw a photograph of.
Now, with regard to the bedroom for Ms. Grinstead, where is that in this diagram?
Sure, that's located here in the northwest corner of the residence, the front corner.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, I don't have anything further with Agent Rossler at this time.
All right, Ms. Merchant, you can cross examine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Let's do this next slide. Agent Rosser, we spoke previously. You spoke with Mr. Merchant previously, correct?
Yes, and you are on the call.
Okay. And so was the state at your request?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. You did not want to speak with us without the state present?
That's correct.
Okay. And either yourself or the state reported that conversation as well?
Yes.
During that conversation, I just want to talk about a couple things that we talked about. You told us that there was no signs of a struggle in this house, correct?
No, I said that there is no signs of forced entry.
Okay.
And that due to there could have been a struggle or could not have been a struggle, but there's no way for me to tell.
When Mr. Merchant asked you if there was anything suggesting a struggle, you responded no. Do you remember that?
The struggle now, that there's a stand that you saw in one of the photographs, and some of the stuff was knocked off center. And I can't say how it was off center. The candle was over on the side. I can't say how that happened. All I can do as the crime scene specialist to come in and document what it was and how the status of things as they were when I arrived. How it happened, I can't swear to that because I was not there.
And that wasn't my question. My question was, do you remember us asking if there was anything suggesting a struggle, and you responded no. Do you remember that?
I remember going through that question. So to say I remember specifically the sign of struggle, no, I can't say I remember that particular question. I remember the conversation talking about the items on the stand, the candle being knocked over on its side.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. The candle being knocked over on its side, was that something that you took into evidence?
No.
Okay, so if you've been trained as a crime scene investigator, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so if you thought that the candle being knocked over on its side was something of evidentiary value, would your training say that you should take that into evidence?
No, because I did not think a candle located inside the residence was evidence at the time. All I could say was its positioning, that it was located when I arrived, was worthy of being noted.
Okay, so it was worthy of noting, but it wasn't something that was worthy of actually being taken into evidence?
That's correct.
Okay, and was there any crime scene tape ever placed on the residence?
Not by me.
Okay, and you told us that that was something that you would have photographed if it had been placed?
Sure, if it had been placed when I arrived, then that would have been noted in the photographs that I took when I arrived.
Okay, and so since it's not noted, it's safe to say that it wasn't there?
Sure.
Okay. And in addition to the crime scene investigation training that you have, do you also have training on how to testify in court?
Yes.
Okay. And part of that training is how to be a witness and to look at the jury when you're speaking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's training that a normal lay witness might not have, but something that you as a GBI agent actually went through.
That's correct.
Okay. Were there a lot of folks the day that you were there? Had there been a lot of folks in and out of the scene?
I can't testify to what happened before I got there.
Is that something important to note as an investigator?
As the crime scene specialist coming from another region, I got there, I met with the person, Agent Bill Baudry, who at the time was assigned to help me with processing the scene. He had the information on the case. He's the one I met with and got the information pertaining to, hey, GBI has been requested to help investigate a missing person. So then he asked, hey, let's process the residence to see if there's any items of evidentiary value that can help identify a crime or the location of Ms. Grinstead. And so that's kind of where I started. That's where I came into it.
Okay. And since you mentioned items of evidentiary value, let's walk through that. You took a comforter into evidence, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that comforter, you told us, had some light staining that you thought might be menstrual blood. Do you remember that?
I did not say menstrual blood. I said suspected blood.
When you spoke to us, did you not tell us that there was no way for you to differentiate between blood and menstrual blood?
That's correct. At the time, all I can do is say if it's suspected blood or not. There are presumptive tests that you can do to say if something is blood or not, but they're just presumptive. So when you think something is blood or could be blood, then you package it up and you send it to the scientists at the GBI crime lab.
But you even noted in your report, though, that you thought it could be menstrual blood.
I said it's suspected blood.
Okay.
I can't differentiate whether it's menstrual or anything.
And again, my question was not whether or not you can differentiate here today. It was whether or not you listed in your report that it was suspected to be menstrual blood.
Yeah, I'll be a copy of my report.
Which report are you referring to?
The GBI crime scene summary.
Can you tell us which
89178.
Which exhibit number? I'm sorry.
14.
14. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Agent Rossler noted suspected blood on the underside of the comforter at one edge. The suspected blood was not visible prior to turning the comforter over, collected the comforter, and documented on the evidence receipt. Doesn't say anything about menstrual blood.
When you spoke to us after this incident, let's see. And you all, the recording of the incident, of the conversation that we had, was turned over in discovery. I assume that you provided that to the state?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And in that is when you specifically said that it could have been menstrual blood and there was no way for you to differentiate.
Yeah, I can't differentiate between any type of suspected blood.
Okay.
Correct.
Right, I understand. So continuing on about the things that you did actually seize from the scene, you seized 7 different latent prints. Were you able to, or did you attempt to process any other area in the home for prints?
Yes, I did.
Tell us where you attempted to process.
Throughout the entire residence. Light switches, door handles, door frames, insides, interior and exteriors of the doors inside the residence.
Okay, and you were not able to obtain any prints from any of those locations?
That's correct.
Okay. And I know that you said you got prints from the inside of the door. Were you able to swab for DNA?
I did not swab for DNA.
Okay. And you mentioned on direct that you're able to get fingerprints because of secretions, oil and skin cell secretions, things like that?
That's what leaves the fingerprints, yes ma'am.
Is that also what leaves DNA?
Yes.
Okay. But you did not swab for any DNA?
No.
You noted in your report that there was no other suspicious blood in the house, correct?
That's correct.
And you even checked to see if there was a layer of dust, to see if there had been a cleanup?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was no cleanup evidence? There was no evidence that this scene had been cleaned up?
That's correct. And by that, I've worked scenes before in my past that People have used bleach and all types of chemicals and mops and really bloody scenes, and they've made efforts to try and clean those up. And that's pretty easy to see. But this, I used oblique lighting, and it's as simple as putting a flashlight on the ground and rolling it around. Turn the lights off and you can see if there have been any disruptions or anything like that. Then I also used an alternate light source. It's called a Lumilight. And so there's different lenses. There's one's called just a bright white lens, and it's just like a super duper flashlight to help go around and see if you can identify any other items of evidentiary value. Then there's also one that's it's a 450 nanometers, so it's a different wavelength that allows the light to pass through it. And you have these orange amber colored goggles that you look through, and it'll help luminesce any items of evidentiary value that you can't see with the naked eye. So I did that throughout the entire residence as well, and I did not note any items of evidentiary value.
So doing all of that fancy work that you did, all of that detailed work, you did not find any evidence of a crime scene cleanup?
That's correct.
You also noted you did not see any signs of forced entry on any of the doors or windows, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the car, you did also go in Ms. Grinstead's car, and you noted that the vehicle was unlocked?
I did not go into her car. That was processed by Detective Bars and Detective Anderson, I believe. All I did was note in my overall photographs as well that the windows were up and the doors were unlocked.
Okay, so you ascertained that the doors were unlocked without actually going in the car?
Yes.
Okay. And did you process anything on the car?
I did not. Someone else did.
Okay. Let's talk about the glove for a second. When you arrived on the scene, the glove had already been taken by Officer Bars?
I don't know who took the glove. It was not there when I arrived.
Okay, so you did not see the glove. What about the cell phone? Did you see the cell phone?
I didn't know anything about a cell phone.
Okay, nothing about a cell phone. Great. When we spoke, we talked a lot about the doors and whether or not there were signs of forced entry. If the lock had been engaged, you told me you could not open it with a credit card. And when you're talking about the lock...
I didn't say I couldn't. I said I don't know if it could be done. I don't try it. I've never tried it. I've never tried picking one of those locks with a credit card. So I can't testify whether it could or couldn't be.
Okay, well, if you can take a look at, I think it should be on your screen, this area right here.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the type of lock that would be on typically a hotel door, things like that, something that's locked from the inside?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is that the type of lock that you could pick with a credit card?
I do not know the answer to that. I've never tried it. I've never asked anybody if it could be done.
So you think that, your testimony is that you think this lock might be able to be picked with a credit card?
My testimony is I don't know if it can or can't be. I've never done it. I've never tried it. And I've never asked anybody if it could or could not be done.
Okay. And in your experience as a crime scene tech, if that lock had been picked somehow, I mean, it's hammered to the back of the door, would you have seen evidence of that? Would you have seen some signs of forced entry?
I don't know, because I don't know if it can be picked or how it could be picked. So I can't testify to what it would look like if it were.
Okay. You testified that there was no signs of any breaking down or damage to the door, though, correct?
That's correct.
So this lock right here, there was no signs of any damage to it at all?
That's correct.
Okay.
To the lock to the door frame.
The lock to the door or the door frame. Okay. And that same type of lock you noted was on both doors in the home?
I do not know if it was on the door inside the garage or not.
Just show you what I marked as Defense Exhibit 2. You testified earlier about the inside of that back door, and I just want to ask you some questions just about that back door. You said the inside was the laundry room, and it looked like it wasn't something that was accessible.
Yes.
Does that picture that I've shown you, Defendant's Exhibit 2, does that accurately reflect the inside of that back door?
Yes, it does.
Okay. I move to admit Defendant's Exhibit 2 in there.
Objection to D2.
Thank you. Thank you. May I publish that?
Sure.
So this photo right here, this is the door, the back door that we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is the stuff that's in front of that door?
That's correct.
Okay. And so this is what indicated to you, this and in addition the stuff on the other side indicated to you that this door was not used?
Not commonly.
Okay. And you also noted that there was no evidence of forced entry on this door, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You testified on direct about the lampshade and you believed it was crooked or off.
Yes.
When you arrived on the scene, it was 5 o'clock on Monday evening, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And again, you don't know who was in and out of that house that day?
Correct.
Okay. Did you take that lamp into evidence?
No.
Okay. Did you do any fingerprint analysis or DNA analysis on that lamp?
I believe I fingerprinted it, yes.
You believe you fingerprinted it?
Yes.
What did you do with those fingerprints once you did that?
Did not develop any fingerprints.
I'm sorry?
I did not develop any fingerprints. Just
Okay.
the powder.
You put the powder
I
on?
believe I did, yes.
Okay, I understand. So you put the powder on to try and get prints, but there were no prints that you could get.
That's correct.
Got it. What about DNA?
No DNA. I did not test for DNA.
You did not even test for it. Okay, understood. In the photos that the state showed you, there was jewelry everywhere. Would you agree that that was in plain sight for anybody to see jewelry all over the house?
Yes, the majority in the bedroom, yes.
Just 1 minute. So, this photo that I showed you, Defendant's Exhibit 2, it should still be up on your screen. Do you
Yes,
see
ma'am.
these chimes right here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did those chimes also appear on the front door?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
I'll show you. Those chimes right there?
Similar, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And would you agree that the purpose of putting chimes out like that is to alert you if someone's actually entering the door?
I don't know what the purpose would be. It could be, yes, but I didn't put them there. I don't have chimes on my doors. I don't know.
Thank you.
Follow up, Mr. Reagan.
Just briefly, Your Honor. Agent Rossler, back on direct your attention back to 2005, she asked you about doing DNA processing for touch DNA inside the home. Was the GBI doing touch DNA or swabbings from at that time and testing at that time?
I don't believe so, but I can't recall exactly what year we started transitioning to that science when it came.
And so and if you did swabbings on something, would you be able to get a fingerprint from it?
No, because you would essentially be wiping off any type of print.
Further? Both of them.
I have nothing else.
All right, any region agent, Rossler shouldn't be excused. Good deal. Agent Rossler, thank you for your testimony. You're welcome to stay, go, whatever you'd like to do. You're released at this time. Just don't tell anybody about the testimony you've given to this jury with any other witness to the case until the case is over, okay?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Have
Thank
a
you,
great
sir.
day. You'll be excused at this time. Everybody all right? Anybody need a break? Yes. All right. Let's take about a 10-minute recess. Y'all will step. Oh, you're saying you're okay. Not, yeah, you want a break. All right. Good deal. Tell your next witness.
State called Bill Godfrey to the stand. He's also in our office.
All right. Good morning, sir. This is Mr. Baudry. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
If you'll step up there, please, before you're seated, raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the evidence you're going to provide in the trial of this case is going to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do, sir.
Thank you so much. Please be seated. Give your attention to Ms. Hart.
Could you introduce yourself to the jurors, please, sir?
William Baudry Jr., I go by Bill.
And how are you currently employed?
I'm a special agent with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
How long have you worked as a special agent with the GBI?
Since 2000, August of 2000.
And where are you currently assigned with the GBI?
I'm now at the training center in Versailles.
Yes, sir.
And I'm over GBI training.
Is that all of the GBI training?
It is, yes, ma'am.
Back in 2005, what was your job assignment with the GBI?
I was located at the Region 13 office in Perry, Georgia.
Did you have an occasion to be involved in the investigation of what was then a missing person of Tara Grinstead?
Yes, I was.
And when did you first learn that there was a missing persons case in Ocilla, Georgia?
The morning, it was a Monday morning, October the 24th, when I got to the office in Perry.
Yes, sir.
That's when I learned that we had received a call from Ocilla that there was a missing person.
Okay. And I guess to be, for the jury's edification, the Perry office, does that just cover Houston County?
No, ma'am. It covers multiple counties, kind of down I-75. We skip Cordell. But Bibb County, Peach, Houston, Dooley, Irwin, Ben Hill, several counties.
And so as an agent out of the Cordell office, was that the office that was assigned to investigate Tara Grinstead's missing person case?
The Perry office, yes, ma'am.
Now, were you what we would refer to as the lead agent in that case?
No, I was not.
However, on October 24th of 2005, did you actually go to the residence of Tara Grinstead?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell the jury about what time it was that you arrived that day, morning, afternoon?
Probably, I think it was around lunch when I actually got to Ocilla.
Okay. And you said when you got to Ocilla, did you go someplace before you went to Miss Grinstead's home?
No,
Okay.
no.
Were any other agents present at the residence when you were there?
Yes.
Who else was there?
Dominic Turner.
And then, do you know Jeff Rossler?
I do.
At any point while you were present, did Jeff Rossler arrive to process the crime scene?
Yes, he did.
Okay. In addition to Dominic Turner and Jeff Rossler, were any other agents present in the home that you can recall during the time you were there?
No. Agent Gary Rothwell was the special agent in charge of the Perry office. He was in Ocilla.
Yes, sir.
But not right there in the residence.
Okay. When you were at Miss Grinstead's residence, did you have an occasion to look at her house phone?
I did.
And that particular house phone, what kind of phone was that?
It's an AT&T cordless phone with an answering machine built into the phone, but the handset is separate, meaning it's cordless.
And do either the answering machine portion or the handset have what we then refer to as caller ID?
It did.
Did you actually take that phone into evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
Prior to taking the phone into evidence, however, did you record the
We ready? First of all, I want to say good afternoon to you all. Thank you all for coming out. I want to acknowledge the DA and Fulton County Sheriff. We're here today to speak on the arrest of Jeffrey Williams that in collaboration with Fulton County DA's office and the Fulton County Sheriff on yesterday. This collaboration is representative of the partnership with the Atlanta Police Department and the DA's office on our aggressiveness and going after gang members. The mayor as well as the DA gave a interview on last week expressing their concerns about what we were seeing in our city and how we would go after any offender. And at the direction of the DA taking the lead on us yesterday, making sure that we were able to get one of our top offenders off of the street. In partnership with them, utilizing our tactical teams, we were able to go out to the individual's location and arrest him without any significant consequences to him or any other parties at the house. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the DA.
Thank you, Chief Bryant. Today I'm joined by the Atlanta Police Chief, Chief Rodney Bryant, as well as my sheriff and our sheriff, Sheriff Patrick Labatt. We are here today about a grand jury indictment that was returned that included not just Jeffrey Williams, which is of some notoriety and media attention, but about 28 defendants that operated within our community between the time period of 2012 and 2022. It is our allegation that they operated as a criminal street gang and commenced to do havoc in our community. That havoc includes crimes of violence, crimes of thefts, crimes involving drugs. I've made no secret about it, nor any apology, that as the District Attorney of Fulton County, my number one focus is targeting gangs. And there's a reason for that. They are committing conservatively 75 to 80% of all of the violent crime that we are seeing within our community. And so they have to be rooted out of our community. I said just a week or two ago, it does not matter what your notoriety is, what your fame is. If you come to Fulton County, Georgia, and you commit crimes, and certainly if those crimes are in furtherance of a street gang, that you are going to become a target and a focus of this district attorney's office, and we are going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. I agree with Chief Bryant. What you see yesterday and what you will see in the upcoming months and years is the result of a lot of hard work by both the Atlanta Police Department and this office. We are proud to bring forth this indictment and hopefully to bring justice to a lot of the community who was victimized through the course you see in this indictment. But more importantly, the most important thing that we are here to do is to keep this community safe, and we believe removing these 28 defendants will keep Fulton County safer. Yes, sir.
The indictment's got Young Thug and a bunch of other rappers. There was one name I was actually expecting to see there that I didn't, and that's Jack Harlow. Can you speak to that?
What I'll tell you is that as large as this indictment is, I told my team that let's not be sexy, now let's not overreach, let's be conservative in our approach, which is always the approach that I take. And in taking that approach, 28 defendants were indicted, and they were indicted for the crimes that I believe were appropriate for this RICO indictment. And so I won't speak to any person that is not named.
These are serious, significant charges. I would imagine you're going to see some pretty serious sentencing here. I know it's early, but can you talk a little bit about the type of sentences they might be facing?
Well, we'll ask on the different charges for the maximum penalties, and there's obviously many people that are looking at life under this indictment. You're absolutely right. These are serious times. They're serious allegations, and it is my opinion that violence in our community deserves maximum penalties.
In a recent interview, you said in the coming weeks and months to expect indictments, RICO charges, gang charges. We see that with fear, but this is only focused on the YSL gang. At that time, you used plural indictments. Should we expect more indictments against singular gangs in the coming weeks and months? Is that what you were meaning with that quote?
Yeah, and if you're already aware, we dropped an indictment not that long ago against YFN. It is certainly a tool that I believe in, which is using RICO. I believe, the reason that I believe in it as a tool is it allows juries and the communities to see the complete picture of a crime so they can truly be educated and have facts to weigh when they're making decisions. And so if you're asking, should you expect to see other RICO indictments against other street gang organizations? Absolutely.
And two questions specific to YSL. With the 20-some people arrested here or named, how big is this gang? Is that a good portion of the gang you're operating in Atlanta, and how long were you investigating them?
If you look at the indictment, the crimes that are alleged within it go all the way back from 2012 to 2022. I wouldn't say that it contains every act of crime that YSL committed. It is a significant gang that operates here in Atlanta, Georgia, and not every member became a defendant within this indictment, but certainly a significant amount did, and certainly some of the leadership, which is what's most important. We're not going to just target the children that are running out at the direction of leaders and not target leaders.
Madam DA, how much?
Go ahead, Michael.
Sure. How much did social media, music play a role in bringing this indictment?
social media is a wonderful tool for prosecutors in every indictment we bring nowadays.
And let's talk about, obviously, YSL. They're the territories that Cleveland Avenue. It's no secret. We've seen a ton of violence. Innocent bystanders get hit. So you guys believe that by getting them off the streets, that people in that neighborhood who are living in fear can actually have some peace now?
I believe that people in that neighborhood and at every corner of Fulton County deserve to be safe, even if it is financially lower, socially, economically. You know, I don't think that part of the community should be left behind. Me and the mayor and the police chief have talked about the fact that Cleveland in our community is referred to as Bleveland, that it is somewhere where just violence occurs, where they're marking up territory, it's blood territory. It's horrible. And you're absolutely right. That community deserves to be safe, and we are hoping that this helps to keep them safe.
As we talk about safety, we know these gang members are going to be housed or brought in at the same time. How are you and Sheriff Labatt working to keep them away from each other in the jail, especially with YF and Lucci being targeted as that came out recently?
Well, I won't step outside of my lane. I am the district attorney of Fulton County. I am not the sheriff. I have great confidence in the sheriff. He knew that this was coming as a law enforcement partner, and I believe that he is well prepared, but you'd have to speak to him to make sure that everyone within his facility is safe.
This indictment names a few, it's not just social media posts, but songs that have been released by Young Guns and others, where it goes through the lyrics, evidence supporting the RICO conspiracy. And I'd like you to speak to the First Amendment issues that obviously raises.
This issue's been ruled on by the courts. I knew that question was coming. I believe in the First Amendment. It's one of our most precious rights. However, the First Amendment does not protect people from prosecutors using it as evidence if it is such. In this case, we put it as overt and predicate acts within the RICO count because we believe that's exactly what it is.
Let's allow Sheriff Labatt to answer.
I have one more from Ms. Willis. What's the last time you prosecuted a RICO case? Was that the APS case?
This office? No, since I've been here as the district attorney, I think we've indicted probably 4 or 5 RICOs at this point. So it's a tool I use.
First of all, good afternoon. I believe both Madam DA and Chief Bryant are really raising the level of consciousness in what we're doing within Fulton County, and certainly they deserve our appreciation. With respect to the specific question as to safety and so many people being brought in, we are housing them accordingly to include other facilities. So I encourage everyone to really download the Sheriff's app if you want to know specifically where individuals are, and you'll be accommodated accordingly.
Sheriff Labatt, like as I dug into the indictment, there was an element of it where they were talking about Octavius Greer communicating with an inmate, where the inmate had a cell phone that was contraband. But it was clear from the indictment that you had been, or that all of you had been, monitoring that conversation. But it leads me to ask a question you're probably not going to answer. Was that cell phone deliberately given to an inmate so that those conversations could be monitored?
So I did have an opportunity to read your editorial that you posted in the Buckhead blog or whatever it was from that perspective. And so you're right, I'm not going to answer that. So, appreciate it. We'll leave that to Madam DA.
Can you tell us of the 28 who were indicted, how many have been arrested, how many are large, how many are already in custody?
You know, and I do not have that exact number. I can tell you approximately 10 were already in custody. I believe as of last night, we had arrested at least 3 as of last night. I expect to see more arrests today and in the upcoming weeks, but I'm realistic. It's probably going to take the next 2 weeks to get everyone in custody.
There's been some discrepancies about where Gunn is. Maybe this is better for the sheriff. Where he's being, is he in custody?
Short answer, Michael, he's not in custody.
Okay. I mean, has there been arrangements for him to surrender, or is he considered a fugitive right now?
Well, we're making arrangements as much as he had representatives call me last night directly. So we'll muddle through that piece and let you know. And again, download the sheriff's app. Make sure.
Sheriff, one more question.
Yes, sir.
Have you had to take any special precautionary measures at the jail in light of high profile? I mean, you mentioned people being housed differently, but just safety for your corrections officers, and what kind of, are you able to reveal some of the things you've had to do in light of?
And that's a great question, and I appreciate you taking the time to come visit us a couple of weeks ago. To that extent, based on some of the things that we found, we've already begun new procedures. And so the opportunity for us to maintain safety is paramount. Thank you.
Follow up on Michael's question with the indictment and names being out there now. Are any of the individuals considered fugitives? Is there a worry that some of them are on the run now because they know that they're indicted?
In this business, I'm certain that there will be some people that won't volunteer to come into custody. There is no concern that somebody will escape being arrested.
One last question, I'm sorry. How significant was the arrest of Christian Eppinger with regard to the timeline of this indictment? Like, I had been looking at it where that arrest set off this 90-day clock, but I'm reasonably certain you were looking at YSL before all of this. Did that create a sort of a time situation where you wanted to get this done?
No. There was long ago a time-sensitive importance or significance to this particular case. I was a prosecutor, as you know, for 16 years, 4 months, and 4 days in this office. The murder of Donovan Thomas in 2015 created violence like Atlanta has never seen. It was a goal of my predecessor and any person or prosecutor in this office to make sure that that family received justice, because everyone is entitled to justice. It was a commitment I made from the first day I walked into this office. Very shortly after me becoming the DA, I sat down with Mr. Thomas's mother and I made her a promise that her son was as valuable as any other person within our community, and that I would put resources on this case, and that I would do everything I could to make sure that her son had justice. And yesterday was a proud day for me.
Was there any connection between the killing of Young Thug's children's mother and this gang?
I don't believe any.
Okay.
Thank you.